James, what's your last name, James?
DeZello.
Oh, James, okay, yes, probably our newest. Probably. Welcome, James.
Thank you.
Welcome to More Realty. And what's your name?
Jenny Wright.
Oh, Jenny Wright. Hi. He's after you, I think, but nice to meet you. You're not the newest.
This one was 300.
Yes, who was 300?
Oh, wait, yeah. Oh, wait. This is 300. Sorry. That's right. I forgot. Thank you very much. We're at 30 something now. I mean, we're continuing to grow, but I don't remember which order it was, honestly. I just remember that was 300. And then, Chrissy, you're visiting today?
Yep, I'm visiting. I work with Keller Williams right now and kind of exploring my options.
Okay.
Welcome.
Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Anyone else here that's? Nope. Okay. And we know each other, right? You're with Cross Country. Yes, I look familiar. So we got Eric Kroll and his posse here from Cross Country down the hall. Anything you want to say today, Eric?
Good to see everybody. Hopefully you can hang out for Lorraine's going to do a class on credit afterwards today. That's the CE. And then we've got a couple of things that I think are really exciting coming up. We've got our company expert on renovation loans on the 22nd. Is that right? Yes, on the 22nd. So she's coming up from California. She's going to cover all renovation loans. So 203K, VA, and the Fannie Mae, what's that called? Home style program. So the reason I think all the classes are good. The reason I think that one will be really beneficial to you is I've been doing this a long time, and I've heard from so many realtors over the years about the clients they take and drive around to 20 different homes, and they're like, make a decision, and they hear things like, that would have been perfect if only for the hall bathroom, right? So this is a way to turn around and go back to the house and go, envision the hall bathroom you want. We've got a loan to allow you to get into this home and buy it. So I think that'll be a great one for you.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing in the building. I know they're doing a lot behind the scenes, and like I've been plugging them, give them an at-bat. Give them a chance with a buyer. I know you have your lenders and preferences, and it's not to take away from that, but they are doing a lot to help support the office and the structure and the facility and more realty too. So
yeah, real quick on that. Yes, please give us a try. Like you've heard me say before, try us out on the first one. We have to earn it after that, right? And we all of us that are here believe that. The second thing is, if you have a lender that you've worked with that's really good, I would love to talk to them. How would you like them?
let's bring you in the building.
Yeah, how would you like them to be in this office, right? So it's got to be a good fit, and they've got to do things, the way that would fit with us. But I would love an introduction, and we would love to talk to them. So please keep that in mind as well.
They're hiring, in other words. So if you have your favorite, you like them in the building.
Good loan originators.
And I'm struggling with my computer. I apologize. Was Eric Young here today?
I've not seen him.
Yes, I'm here. Yeah. Okay. He got someone else to do the camera. So yeah. It's raining. Yeah, the traffic is pretty rough this morning. It's probably contributing to our things, but I'm just trying to get my computer to boot to connect to the monitor here. Sorry about that. While I'm doing this, any questions or anything else that you wanted to bring up? That was your segue.
My question is, I have been seeing more and more offers that have been submitted and never got any rejection paperwork back from the listing agent.
Yeah. Anyone ever see anything like that where they don't? Yeah. All the time, right?
Legally, contractually, they need to do something like that.
So what he's referring to is I submit an offer, they're gonna reject it and don't say anything. Get no paperwork back, sometimes not even an email, it's just dark, right? It expires and is expired by default, you've been notified, right?
Well,
You can,
you check our mail is pending.
yeah, so you kind of know because you're aware. Is that a smart thing to do as a realtor?
No.
Why is it not smart, Lee? You said no very emphatically.
Because I went through that just very recently. How do you explain it to your clients for one thing?
do you protect yourself that you've done the paperwork and then it stops dead in its tracks and you have no proof to anybody, not to the office, not to your clients. The clients are why in the world, when did you present it? Well, I make the notes. So what we did here to protect me, Denise had said, let's do an email, because I was talking to the agent, never. She wouldn't return calls. I'm busy. I picked one and they sold it, we sold it. She was on her way to Wyoming. Yeah, and how do I protect us? How do I protect our office? So we did an email, and I kept the email showing that at least I had done that, and then I had the paper trail of all my notes. I guess that's all you could do. You can't force them to call you. Right.
Nope, you can't force them. Okay, any other comments on that? What? Okay, Deirdre, then.
As a listing agent though, just to be able to have proof that all offers are actually presented, more than the buyer's agent,
Yep.
you don't have something showing that you've actually presented all of the offers.
That's the number one for you as a realtor. Yep.
So as the listing agent, you're the buyer's agent.
Yep, prove you've delivered, prove you presented it. So I'm an agent, and I've happened to do before, where I have a home listed as hot, you get 14 offers in 5 hours. Is it a pain in the butt to go through all that? It is. But is it the right thing to do? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You had to.
Yeah, and so I had a deal this weekend. I just closed with this agent a couple months ago. When he first did this, I thought it was strange, but then I realized this is how he rolls, and I just want to see if it's okay. It's kind of similar. So he takes a picture of the front of the house. That's all. List the price super low. This is like Oswego, $299. It's like crazy low. It's vacant. 3,000 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3 baths, and then you go see it. It's crawling with people. They're just, filled with people. And then I told my investor that I know he does this. He purposely lowballs it. Usually not that low. It should have started at 3.99. It was crazy. So I said it has to be above 4. So he calls me back, and then what he does, with the permission, I guess, of the seller, is he tells you what the highest offer is. If you want to go above that, he goes, thanks for your offer. You need to be at 420 now. And so then I go back, and if he does that, he keeps going until he gets it up. Is that okay? I mean, I guess it's okay. Not to the seller.
Comments?
As long as you have seller's permission.
What's that?
Seems like an auction almost.
It's almost like an auction, yeah.
There's
Some
some
of them like that.
in the legal world too, there's a real problem when things are done over the phone and nothing's recorded, because we can talk and then later you'll go, well, I said I'd go to 430 and you said you had higher. And I'm like, no, I said we were at 420, and if you go to 430, we'll take it. And there's nothing to prove who's right. And it's not even that they're doing it on purpose. There's just this.
No, he just wanted it verbally, but I email because it's like, I'm not just doing that.
So doing it just verbally creates huge risk for the realtor. Just like if you haven't delivered it for signatures, how do you know the client? Now you're really kind of acting on their behalf when you're really, that kind of crosses the fiduciary duty, that rides that line, right? You always want everything in writing, right? And you might have an initial conversation over the phone and say, hey, look, if I'm here, is it a waste of my time? I had to do that all the time. If we come in at 230, full price, is it a waste of our time? Can you just tell me that? I don't want to waste your time. Yeah, that's a waste of your time. Great, won't bother. I mean, that's not a big deal. Because then I can convey to my client that, we can have our communication. But I've never had anyone say, we're at 325, can you beat that over the phone? That's really uncomfortable. And that's almost like you're talking fast like, hey, 25, 35, 55, it's almost like that on a conference call. But no, I wouldn't do that. I would at least send them an email. If you have in the end, you can only do so much, right? You can't force the agent to give you rejection. The risk falls upon the agent not doing it. We as agents are just frustrated on the other, as a buyer's agent, frustrated. You didn't tell me it was rejected. I just have to figure it out, and thanks for wasting my time. I mean, that's kind of, so there's really no legal implications here. You can note the offer, never returned, I see that it's pending, and put it in the file, right? That's about all you can do, because you cannot force anyone to sign anything, period, right? So yes, I see more and more of that. You see some people getting probably a little too creative, but in the end, you can't force them. If they don't, just put a line through it. Apparently, it was rejected because the agent was not returning my phone calls, and as he is now pending, and then just put it in the file somewhere. That's all you can do. Yeah, you were first. Minute.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it reflects poorly on us as realtors, when we have to explain to our clients that this other realtor, we got no response. I mean,
It
for our
does, yeah.
industry, it just, yeah.
It doesn't bode well for the industry of that kind of thing. And there's a lot of things. Our realtors, there's a lot of jokes about realtors. Are realtors really liked?
No.
As a rule, they're like, oh, you're a realtor. You know, you couldn't pass the bar, right? So now you're a realtor. You know, there's this kind of whatever. There's a stigma with realtors, but I think we do that to ourselves a lot, right? The bar is almost a little bit too loose, I guess. And so we have to be careful. So it's important that you're known as a communicator. You're one that's clearly communicating to people. If you're doing to clients what he's describing or she's describing, that's going to be now I have a problem. Right? Now we're going to talk about that and train you to do it the right way. You should not do it over the phone. You should always respond. When I had my 14 offers or 16, whatever it was, I didn't have them initial every single page, but I went to the last page where it was rejected at least. And in the front page, rejected by seller, C page, whatever. Instead of initialing everywhere, then I scanned them all and sent them all in one thing and had them sign. That's all they wanted to do, and I sent it to the people. But I at least got something to them. It was a long day, but it's the right thing to do, right? Lauren, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so on that note, with the realtor who lowballs and gets others, the seller has the right, correct me if I'm wrong, the seller has the right, even if it is a full priced offer, to reject any offer they want.
Mm-hmm.
They're not required
Accept any offer.
to accept any offer. I was recently told I have a property that could be, like, it's priced well, but a lot of people I had a lot of like a lot of emotion on a lot of offers, and somebody told me, oh well, can't expect over asking, because I'm like, sorry, we have an accepted offer, and they said something like, well, you can't expect over asking, like that's not right. And they have the right.
What was that?
That falls in that category of someone giving your industry a bad name.
Yeah.
Because of course you'd expect over.
Yeah, and they have the right, even if it is over asking, to reject it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a misnomer out there. Some people think if I got a full price offer, you have to accept it. You don't have to accept it. There's hundreds of terms in there, hundreds of variables when you start looking at it that kind of play into each other. And just because someone gives you a full price offer doesn't mean it's an offer I'm going to accept.
The confusion though sometimes is when the listing agent gets a full price offer for the client, commission still ain't due, and so I think a lot of people get that.
Yeah, and by virtue of the verbiage of the contract, the listing agreement, you might still be able to hold them accountable for commissions if they don't accept any offer. But I've only ever seen that kind of be enacted, I think, once. Because I think when you do that to a client, it also gives our industry a bad name. But at the same time, we have people backdoor us all the time, right? So who's the one really giving us a bad name? It's the clients. I don't need you anymore. You weren't me a buyer. I don't need you anymore. Anyway, so other hands that were in there about any of this? It's a good topic. I'm glad you brought it up. This is a perfect kind of thing to talk about here. So, no other hands? Okay, Nikki, do you have anything kind of broadly? You announced a security system coming online. You want to just mention that to the group here?
So the security system hopefully will be online Friday night, so Monday morning or anytime over the weekend. You'll have to access our MLS box and ask all of myself
For the code. Denise has it too, but you're likely to get probably get me the easiest. But we're just not going to hand it out broadly to everybody because not everybody uses it, so we don't have that. And by the way, you're on camera. Do you have anything?
I'm gonna do another name badge order. If any of you want to have name badge, I'll send it out on Basecamp. But if I don't do it in time, you can go in there and search on the find in Basecamp and type in name badge, and there's a link that you go to and fill out the information. It tells me what you want on I'll let you
Watch
know,
for a
I'll
minute,
send
too.
out a notice to let you know when I'm gonna place the order, but the sooner the better you can get your information if you want.
Thank you. Okay, calendar, just want to make you aware, if you go into Basecamp, not able to click on that thing, okay. Underneath More HQ is the schedule. You can always see what the classes are here. We have one today at 11:30. We have one tomorrow for home inspections. There's room in both of those classes. If you haven't registered, you want to stay or show up, you can. And then we're going to talk about the various LEADS programs on Thursday, right, Melissa? And then next Tuesday, we've had like 110 register now. For next week, we'll be having our celebratory, hey, we have 300, about every 6 months, we try to get together for something anyway. And it's just good timing. And by the way, just kind of a cool little story, if I can sidebar this. Sometimes when you go through life, no good thing goes unopposed, right? And you're always, good things, you're doing good things, it's kind of, there's always some sort of opposition to that, right? And you have to fight through it. Well, a lot of you know that 3 years ago I had 7 agency complaints filed against me. Almost all of them for brokers that didn't like our model. It's weird. And we were only at like maybe 80 agents at the time. And they've all been tossed out. But on Thursday, we hit agent number 300. That's also the same day I received final notification of the agency those have been dismissed. So I always knew they were being dismissed, but it took 3 years for the letter to get to me. That's how slow the wheels turn at the agency. 3 years. Crazy. Anyway, just kind of a fun little trivia capsule. So next Tuesday, we're going to get together, register if you can attend, and we'll just get together and have a barbecue and just kind of a casual thing, just to celebrate that we hit a milestone. And on to another 300 more. So anyway, so just be sure to look at the calendar for all the upcoming events. I want to point out, I just posted this on June 10th. There's going to be a special training class that's on Monday. Kevin Harker, who is the attorney who does a lot of the CE class, he and I are going to co-teach team a class for just more realty. I hope we can get 250 people there, because we're going to go over a lot of the, just how you be safe, why it's important to be safe, and what's the risk management things. And so we might not be able to hold, hopefully we can't be here, because we want as many as we can. So just watch for that. Back to my little deal here. Just point out more gives at the auction or at the party next week. We're gonna have a little silent or a raffle to benefit More Gives Foundations. A lot of companies have their own foundations. We have ours. It's called More Gives Foundation. That's your logo. We have a jar out front. One of the items is going to be a jar of cash, and people can throw cash in that jar. And one of the raffle items, you put your ticket in, and whoever's ticket's drawn gets that jar of cash. So that jar is out front if anyone wants to throw any cash in that. Stay, prepped for that. So. And then, so just, we'll have a raffle. Anything you want to say, Christine, about it? No? We're good? Okay. And then just to remind you of, just trying to help prime the pump with cross country. If you give them an at bat this week and the deal closes, there's no fees in that transaction, TC or otherwise. We'll just include it. So.
Except us just being great wasn't enough.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Okay, so anything else while I'm pulling up my thing for the training that I'm going to go over? Very good. Okay, so we're going to touch on repair addendums for a few minutes. That does not work. That works. Okay, you probably still can't read it. How many of you out there still receive buyer repair requests on a regular addendum? Does that happen to anyone? I see it all the time. That is not the right way to do that, because you're missing all this other verbiage that is applicable in a transaction. So when do buyer repairs have to be agreed to in order to maintain, preserve the deposit? During inspection contingency. At what time? 5 p.m. that day. And is it good to send over your buyer's repair addendum on day 9 at 5?
No.
What's the risk back there?
Not getting back.
Not enough time to go back and forth, right? You're likely going to need to extend. Does the seller have to extend?
No.
They do not have to agree to extend. So, wise agent, taking out for your clients and making sure you don't fall in any kind of E&O category, is you want to make sure you get right on those inspections. And if you need an extension, you get on that right away. if you can't get, if you're on day 2 and you can't get inspector out until day 8, extend now, right? You just say, I need more time. So you have plenty of time to work those negotiations. Excuse me. So we have this is a real-time transaction that we're working through here, and we had an agent call yesterday, but I want to use this kind of they're always using this as teaching opportunities to the do's and don'ts and what to watch for and what not to do so that we don't do them, right? So field a call from Melissa, field a call from one of our agents. It's on here, Yolanda Loco. She's done nothing wrong on this. And I haven't had the time to block anything out, but there's some things in here I just want to point out. So if we're in the inspection contingency, buyer sends over this repair addendum. And the relevant part here is what does seller decide to do? They decline to do. What does that mean? We're not doing anything you just said. Do things carry over if they're unchanged on the next addendum? So if they present a seller's addendum, it used to say something like, unless modified, they remain intact. It doesn't say that anymore. It's different. There was an addendum in between to extend repair addendum, right? Because we were right at the deadline, so they sent this, just to extend the repair addendum, along with that to the May 7th. And this was signed on May 7th. So they extended it the date it was signed. And it was rejected. So where's the risk here? From a paperwork flow. You've extended it to the rejection, right? So we're technically out of the inspection contingency window. Yes, Melissa?
And this one is technically out of the inspection timeframe period as well.
Yeah.
If we don't make those.
Oh, actually, thank you for clarifying that. What do you notice different about line 6? What did they extend? What's the difference between the repair addendum and the inspection contingency? All they did was extend this addendum deadline. So there's no extension of the contingency deadline. So people have been around for years. Words matter. They matter, right? They're very important, very relevant. And so the words that are missing here should have said inspection contingency deadline to be extended, and then put a date further out. But all they were wanting to do here is extend the deadline of this addendum, apparently. But it didn't do anything to extend the contingency, just the deadline. And the sellers rejected it and sent this back to them, okay? And the items aren't relevant, okay? And so the buyer signed it, and what did they forget? So what's the status of this addendum? Unknown, right? Is this a binding thing? It's really hard to make this binding if you don't select an option, I accept or reject. But this is real time. We're dealing with it as we speak, last night and today, right? So it came back like this. So one would assume what? You can't assume on this, except this came back with it too. So they rejected the seller's repair addendum and sent back a buyer's repair addendum. What do you assume they were doing here? They were declining it, right? That's what you would assume putting the piece together. And the communication, again, is very, very difficult. Realtors have a bad reputation about communication. And again, we do ourselves a disservice in that by doing that. We have to do a really good job communicating. So here we are with this, and we're not getting back other than a buyer's repair addendum, which the seller in turn, I have the signed version, it's signed. Pretend you see a signature there, okay? I can put one there if it helps. But what did they do? They declined, okay? And so that was the buyer's repair addendum, the seller declined, and the seller sent this one back, okay? And it's presently open, okay? But instead of addressing this one, guess what the buyer's agent did? The seller's addendum that they had previously didn't check a box.
Oh, brother.
Anyone understand the problem here?
Yeah.
Anyone not understand the problem here?
They don't understand.
So, so where are we?
No place.
kind of know, you don't
We
even
don't have a
know.
contract.
We have a contract, this is all repairs, right? There's no repairs, the repairs are all unknown because then we received this out of the blue yesterday. Your agent's like, oh my gosh, I just got this, like, okay, who checked that?
So we're out of contract.
But now the inspections contingency's closed, first of all, and now we're still trying, they sent this back. Our seller, before we had got that, our seller had said, put a line to that, withdraw it, I don't wanna give them anything, because they're a mess. Before that happened, this came back. So remember, this goes back to how many? This goes back to this one, which was repaired addendum 2, signed on the 10th. Well, and on the 10th, or on this date, see on the 8th, they sent us another, I mean, you see how out of line, jacked up all their dates are on the flow? It's just a mess.
No, they should use the GC department.
Well, this is the buyer side. This is the other side of the agency. And so, thanks for the plug. So really where we are right now is, what is our only move right now? That we can, what really do I have to do?
Yeah, start over.
Especially just to close, I don't remember what day, it closed on May 1st.
So it doesn't mean the buyers is gonna buy the property as is.
Mhm. But the sellers were willing to sending sellers repair addendums after the fact. There's this intent thing. Well, clearly you were still willing, could be brought up, right? But the seller can at a point say, no, I'm done, which is what they did until we got that. And they were like, okay, where are we on this? So anyone know where we are on this? Can you figure it out? Dan, you're gonna?
Real estate attorney.
No. What this is after the meeting, I have to call the PV. Or this agent's PV and say, I'll just make sure I have the name here if I can. And just say, hey, we need help sorting this out on your end because we got a mess. There's even more to this. There's something else that occurred.
They did not send back the seller property disclosure signed by the buyer either, and she's asked for them.
Yeah. Okay.
It's supposed to close tomorrow.
And closing's tomorrow.
Wow.
So do you see what I mean, this is one that just makes me, if we were on the other side of this and I'm pulled in, this agent's now going to be working with a mentor or a coach, right? Because this is unacceptable on the other side, right? You already had your hand up.
At any point, did the seller agree to anything at this point? No.
The only thing that was agreed to is some price changes.
Price reduction, and so they kind of are stuck with that because it's an addendum to the seller agreement now, so the seller is now stuck with that sales price unless they come back.
Yeah, the intent of that was to cover repairs and stuff, but it wasn't spelled out on here. Again, they should have said, in lieu of any repairs, new purchase price to be, they could have said that. But no, there's been no repair negotiations. Are we actually going to close tomorrow?
Tomorrow, and she's trying to get an extension because the seller says that they can't.
No, when the lender can't make closing now.
If you're on any of it, the seller never agreed to any repairs, and these timeframes are coming on.
You don't have to agree to any.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would assume.
The problem is, you got a buyer saying, oh, we meant to sign this.
Well,
But it still came in after they had already sent us another repair addendum too. So do you see how out of sequence it is to send us now, oh, we meant to accept that after we've already negotiated
But the
everything?
seller never did actually agree to any repairs. Or correct it.
No.
Is that correct?
Was that Eric?
So at the top, the seller offered some repairs,
They did,
but they never came to a mutual agreement.
because the box wasn't checked. So here's
They did offer some at some point.
here's some things that are very, very important. Make sure all your boxes are checked correctly. Not all the boxes are checked. Don't mean check both, because that's the same as neither being checked. But we've seen that. So they're check boxes, but we've seen that where people are not reading, they're just checking empty boxes like, oh my gosh, oh, Eric, get your hand up.
I did, yeah, a couple of things. So, talking about the lender can't close tomorrow, realize that every time we get one of these, and this isn't our deal, but every time we get one of these, we get a revised contract, right? And so we have to make sure that the contract
It matches.
and that everything's being done. So that's the first point, just like you guys don't understand this, we don't either. But another thing you see, and I would think that, we wouldn't have to, say this to licensed realtors, but we do all the time, is those first, repair addendums, that's gonna make everybody's, life a nightmare, right? so if you add in there that it was going too fast for me to read, that the garbage disposal has to be fixed by a licensed contractor,
Need receipts.
we have to prove to the underwriter, because that's part of the contract now, that a licensed contractor repaired the garbage disposal. And so everybody's gonna complain about that, and it's gonna get delayed, but it's in there because it's now part of the contract, right? And then the other thing we see in a scenario like this is the contracts or excuse me, the addendums are labeled 1 through 7, right? And then somebody will go, well, I just won't show them 4, 5, and 6. Well, underwriters are pretty good at numbers, right? So like, I've got 1 through 3, and then I've got 7. What happened in between, right? So unless 7 cancels out everything else, we've got to collect all those things. So
You notice there's no addendum number on these anymore.
So again, I'm not going to advise people how to do that, right?
I am.
I'm just going to exactly. That's for you. I'm just going to say, as a lender, if you get, I've had where I'll get emailed a repair addendum that looks like that or the first one, and I'll call the realtor and I'll say, "Are you sure you want me to have this?" Right? And I will explain to them what it means, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want you to have that." And then I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can lose this one. Don't send me another one." And be careful sending it to title too, right? Because if they send back a full contract that changes the contract that's different that we have, that can cause problems.
As a rule, lenders and title don't need any repair negotiations unless you have this right here, line 17.
That's all I want.
However, if I were, my advice and how we should do this, if you do this under a repair addendum, you have a separate blank addendum with only that item on it. And that's what goes to lender and title.
And let me be clear, from a lending standpoint, if it's important to the buyer or the seller that the exact things are in there, that's fine, right? I would never suggest somebody don't do that, but it has to be proved. If you change the contract, the underwriter has to see that it's been concluded as stated in the contract. So we get people who then get very frustrated at the end because we don't have everything we need, or we don't have a copy of that receipt. Then I need a new addendum, I need something, we've got to change this.
Things were signed up, dated out of order. I mean, you got dates. It's just a mess. Yes.
Just because I'm really pedantic, so line 19 where it says buyer to do a walkthrough 48 hours prior to closing. If the buyer for some reason doesn't and you can't get hold of the agent, it's still a complete contract, right? As long as they had the opportunity to do it.
It doesn't even say they have to approve, it just says do a walkthrough, which is.
Yeah, you walk. That's kind of incomplete too. Cause like, okay, you can walk through. We don't like it. Okay. But at the same time, buyers, there's intent and material facts, and you know what I mean. You have to be careful with that. But yeah, it's not written very well. Buyer to have the opportunity to do a walkthrough and approve all repairs prior to closing would be an easier way to kind of cover that.
It's just if I'm the seller, as long as I give them the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And we close. You don't prevent the opportunity. You don't do something like block it. I'm not letting you. As long as you are willing, but they don't take advantage of it, and we close, you're kind of off to the races.
But it covers it in line 28 and down as well.
Buyer may or buyer suspect within 2 business days of not filled and follow receipts. So it's kind of covered there too. The other thing that's covered in here too is line 26 or 25 and 26. All repairs, corrective action, use of contractors. So shifting gears a little bit on this, I had an agent call yesterday saying I got my seller does not want to use contractors. What's the downside of a seller not using a contractor?
Yeah, not protected by license and bond.
Permits.
Okay, so after closing, if there's an issue, who are they calling? The seller.
And the seller's agent.
And the seller's agent. If you use a contractor, who are you deferring them to? The contractor. That's just good insurance. So part of this is a seller. If this was a difficult client for our agent, so they were refusing. I'm gonna spend the money. I can do this. They know it all. Probably an engineer. No offense to engineers. But the problem is if something's wrong after. First of all, does the buyer have to agree to that? Buyer doesn't have to agree. The buyer can say, no, we want licensed contractors, and then you're stuck with an impasse. But just because one person asks for it doesn't mean the other has to agree to it. It's all negotiation. But it does put a risk on the seller if the seller does do that work after closing if it wasn't done right. And that could become incredibly expensive. Far more expensive than it would have been to hire a contractor. And contractor quotes can vary wildly. 2 months ago, I sent someone out, a contractor. I said, here's the inspection report, what's your bid? He literally said it was $10,000. Wow. Sent it to the other guy who made a site visit, it was $1,000. So that was the difference between two quotes. One made a site visit, looked at it, one didn't. But now after closing, he went and did all the work. Guess who, if they have a problem, thank you for the phone call, but here's the contract to do the work because I didn't do the work. Real estate, we've said this before, is one of those businesses where you can be absolutely perfect and still be at risk. Because attorneys know you have E&O, and that's what they go after anyway, the insurance and whatever, knock on wood. Never had to do that, but have been caught in the process and the systems many times, and it can be very time consuming. Even if you're perfect, even if you're totally justified. Like I said, had those complaints, I did nothing wrong, they were just mad. But it cost, I don't know how many hours. I mean, I had to meet with an investigator for a full day. I had to meet with the agency for a full day. I had to, one agent wrote, one personal broker wrote an 85-page complaint over something he told me to do. He said, yeah, go ahead and get this signed from the client. Okay, great. As we're transferring an agent over, so I went and got it signed, brought it back. Why did you do that? Why are you talking to my client? You told me to. Here it is in writing. Filed an 85-page complaint over that. Okay? And of course it was thrown out, but it took 3 years for that to be addressed. Anyway, so not to overhit on that. Questions on repair addendums? Just want to go over that you need to ask for, you need to spell it out very clearly, and if you're going to do price adjustments, it's best to put them on a separate addendum, just a plain addendum. Yes, dear.
I had always been told with price adjustments or credits towards closing costs, that even though you can kind of verbally agree what it's for, when you put it on the addendum, you should just say, you know,
Purchase price to be.
but not to have tie-ins,
Yep.
what the repair is.
In lieu of the mold in the attic.
Okay, I just want to clarify, because you said on there that whole thing should be on another addendum, but I would have just put the price adjustment or the credit on
Yeah,
another addendum.
that's all you say. So thank you for clarifying that purchase price. So on this plain addendum, not this one, don't ignore the verbiage on this one, but you could have said seller purchase price to be. And that's all you have to say. All title and lenderings know is new price. And if it's agreed to, I will send back another addendum that I create for the lender and escrow. And there's nothing wrong with that.
That addendum says price change on it, the one below, and
They're not in sequence.
sometimes people are upset when you do price change or
Here?
inspection, yeah, instead of putting a number.
I always do it this way.
Yeah, okay.
She's talking about here, addendum number, this was back to Eric was talking about. If you number them in sequence, it can be a track where holes can be shown. They're gonna wanna fill the hole. So 1 through 10, missing 5 and 6, there's a hole underwriting's gonna wanna see. But if you just say price change or extension or repair 1, repair 2, repair 3, or whatever it is, there's no visible hole. And that is perfectly legal, there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, Scott?
One thing, and actually Eric might be able to help us with this one, is what happens if you get a price change after the appraisal has already been done? Because I believe the appraisers have the actual purchase price.
Up or down?
Well, it's going down.
Going down, I think the appraiser really.
Either way, we have to send the appraiser a copy of the addendum.
Does it delay the closing if you're tight on the back end?
If the CD's already been signed, you gotta redo that.
We shouldn't have to redo a CD. Right?
Oh, you're right, okay.
So as long as it didn't change the loan amount. To answer your question, Scott, it depends when it happened, right? So we have to have that to be able to finish up. And so if the appraiser for some reason can't get it to it in a timely manner, so they have to go in and update their appraisal report saying purchase price to be whatever, right? So that it's accurate in there. Where we run into issues is if that comes late, right? If the price change comes late and the appraisal has already been written and done and turned in, getting them to up the appraised value just because there's a change to the sales price is going to be difficult. So I guess if it's lower, then that makes it that's fine, right? So most appraisals, you guys probably know this when you see it, is they're going to come in at the purchase price or with a little rounding error in them, right, on the upside. So, and the reason for that is the appraiser has the contract. So in my mind, this is oversimplification. They're just justifying that sales price, right? So they're looking for the comps to support it. And oftentimes they'll put in another $1,500 or $2,000 in case a little repair comes in or something. But just, I guess, get it to us as soon as possible because it can create delays.
Thank you. Other questions on this? I had planned on touching on multiple offers anyway. I don't know if you knew that or not. We kind of touched on that a bit too already. So one is how do you address the paperwork of a multiple offer? We talked about that. But how do you address it as a listing agent or a buyer's agent? Let's talk about listing agent first. If I'm a listing agent, I have a hot property and I receive 5 offers today. You have a choice. You can just go present all the offers as is and just take them at face value. You can. But you should present all of them. What potentially could happen if there's an offer you don't present?
Not doing the due diligence for the seller.
There's a risk to you that you could come back and be held accountable for the difference of what they could have gotten if it's more, right? Your duty says to present all offers. What if you get an offer after you're under contract? It's like for $100,000 or more. Do you need to present that? You need to present that. Yep. Can they unilaterally cancel the other one and take it? No, they can't do that, but you need to present it. And you can put it in backup offer, but then you can be aware of it. So don't hold any offers from your client. With this caveat, or parenthetically, if it's a short sale, some banks don't want to see all offers. And some agents say you have to present it and say, well, they're refusing to look at it. I can't make them look at it, I'm sorry. They won't even look over the email. As a matter of fact, if I send multiple offers to a short sale bank, it can confuse everything and slow everything down to what's in the process. That's the only caveat there. If a seller is telling you, like a bank, and I'm not talking about a regular, so I'm talking a bank says, don't send me the offers except one, that's different than what we just talked about. We don't do that very often, though. Most of it's typical people that we're representing. So when I receive multiple offers, I can just print them all and just take the best one the client wants to take. The one they're most comfortable with is always the highest price. Absolutely not. I told you about last week, I won a bid for $6,000 under the next offer because we had waived certain things and our offer was just more appealing and we closed on Friday. This Friday, it was that quick, 2-week turnaround. So it's not always the highest price offer, so you have to sit and explain to your clients what they are. Another option would be, think of any other options before I present?
You have to tell the client if they can suggest you go back and get one more, give us your best, highest offer.
Yep. Just suggest your client, if you're okay, I'm just going to ask all of them. Now, should you just unilaterally do that? Probably not, because they might want to see them as is and don't upset the apple cart. Okay, great, here we are. Again, whose offers are they? Is it your decision? But a lot of times, sometimes we think that way, but it's not our decisions. You just ask your client with your permission. I'm going to send an email out to all these agents, say, hey, I've got multiple offers. Please either confirm this is what you want to roll with, or send me any modifications, or give me your highest and best. You can do that. Yes.
I guess this is okay. This is this other weird agent that was in the same situation. So the other house, we actually did get the house, but he came back to me and he said, so we put like a third down on the house, and he said, is that all the money they have? And I said, well,
Well, no.
That's the offer. Well, I'm just saying, if they have a lot of money, could they put more down? He kept going back and forth with me. It's like, I don't know, what do you care? It's like, I thought that was just really odd.
I would probably say, why are you asking? This is really not relevant at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
And that's my client's personal information. I'm not sharing that with you.
Yeah.
Unless you go back to your client and say, he's asking us, why do you want to share it?
Extra money or something? Yeah.
We all have a little extra somewhere. Okay, so what if you receive an escalation clause in all that? What are your options to address like that with your client? One, make sure they're aware of all the offers. Here's all the offers. Here's where one's escalating like this. Let them know. But just because someone sends you an escalation clause, are you bound to the escalation?
No.
Can you reject the escalation?
Yes.
Yep. I'll tell you exactly why. Okay, there's a home listed for $400,000, and I get 3 offers. One has an escalation clause up to $430,000, which is $1,000 over the highest and best. What have they just shown me? What they're willing to pay. I counter back at $430,000. I rejected you that, you're willing to pay 430, that's what we're asking for. What about my escalation? We rejected it, we want 430.
But you would still go with the person that had the escalation cost or somebody else?
No, it just depends.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it depends. And some people can't go above, right? The sequence on one, and I'm thinking, it was with Diana Palmy, actually. She got multiple offers and she had like 2 escalation clauses. And she's, oh my gosh, I have 2 escalation clauses. I have to take them both. What do I do? No. Sometimes we get too linear with us sometimes. And everything's negotiable and everything's rejectable, even an escalation clause. So I said, Diane, just do this. Let's start with this, talk to your client, but we can go back to the offers and just say, give us your best and final. That weeded out one of the escalation clauses that gave us our best, I think it was 425. We had an escalation to 432 on another one. Okay, go back to your client, explain that we have one client who showed they're willing to go 430, but we don't have to use this escalation thing if we don't want to. I mean, it can be rejected too. Do you want to take, what do you want to do? And she explained it, and they said, well, let's counter back at 432. They took it. The people with escalation clause. They said, well, they did. They said, well, where's the escalation? They said, well, we rejected it. Now, I don't know if this flies in the face or people are uncomfortable with that, but I'm willing to take some feedback on if I'm wrong. I don't think I am.
But I have had things accepted with the escalation clause at the lower amount.
Yes.
So it's worth
Totally.
it sometimes, yeah.
But an escalation clause is a term like anything else that can be countered. We reject the escalation clause, we counter back at 432. Well, wait a minute, where's the competing offer? There isn't one. What would you like to do? That's literally what I've said to some people sometimes. There isn't a competing offer. We just, clearly, it's worth that. And now the buyer has a choice to do what? They can do one of three things. What are they? Yep, counter, reject. Right? So now the ball cart, now they can come back and say, well, we rejected your escalation clause. We countered at this. And what would you like to do? It's not fair. Well, what would you like to do? Accept, reject, or counter. I mean, just make a choice. And had they come back and countered, they probably would have taken it anyway. So, yeah, Chris back there. Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Appraised value is important to consider in multiple offers or jacking things up. There is, some people will say, we will pay up to $10,000 over appraised value. And they'll put that in their offer. That's a really good offer. Someone's really serious. They're willing to write a check for $10,000 over the appraised value. Not to exceed us. What's that, Chris? Yeah, now you're going to proof, you've got to verify some things. But I've seen people do that where they've been willing to pay, hey, I know we're in a bidding war here. I know this is going to be above appraised value, but we're willing to pay up to this. And here's my proof of funds to be able to do so. So it's all just it's kind of the fun part of the thing, and is the negotiation thing. But yeah, you have to be aware that you multiple offers and start cranking things up. It does have to appraise. Otherwise, you're just kind of back where you were. Yeah.
And sometimes, other than price, other things matter to your client.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's.
Yep.
I had multiple offers on that runner, and the one we eventually took, she was afraid that it was a California guy who was just gonna flip it. And she said, that's the person, those are the people that make my kids not be able to afford a house here. But he was fine with his daughter, he said.
In the end, it's what the seller wants to accept. It doesn't have to be the highest offer. It doesn't have to be a full price. They can take whichever offer they want, which is why you have to present all offers, right? I'm just saying it. My point in saying all this is just because someone sends an escalation clause doesn't mean you're now bound to the escalation because they're willing to go highest. You can take whatever offer your client wants and or kind of renegotiate based upon, even if you have an escalation clause. Hands? Yeah.
Remember, Paul, that time when the market was so hot that some of us in our listings were saying that we weren't accepting escalation clauses in contracts.
I've actually put that
listing, we wouldn't accept them. you get, 10 escalation clauses overnight.
And that's the other thing I've done with escalation clauses is this, if they send an escalation clause, say, look, we've got multiple offers, just tell me the best you're going to do. They won't accept an escalation clause. Just give us your best shot. I've done that too.
And sometimes, and you still see that with some listings too, where they're set up to be a bid, so, have an open house or whatever, and the
Price is low.
the offers are due by Thursday at 4 o'clock, and then.
Mm-hmm.
That's-
Is, it up to the agent whether they're gonna accept escalation clauses, is that's also.
Explain to your client. Yeah, you just be able to explain to your client and say, here's what an escalation clause means, but here's what you can do with it if you chose to. But we have to appraise, right? There's always appraised value and what people are willing to pay. Yeah, Lauren?
When is it good when you're the buyer's agent, when would you recommend putting escalation clause?
Okay, so changing hats, as a buyer's agent, you kind of want to use escalation clauses because you're going to spend as little as you have to. But not everybody will respond to escalation clauses on the listing side, as I've talked about. A lot of times they'll just, okay, whatever, and deal with it. So an escalation clause, I'll show you what they look like as a buyer's agent. They're right here in Basecamp. Go to the home.
But in all these situations, you recommend you countering to the max if we have this escalation, so it's not really saving money, is it? That's what I'm seeing, and like, if you put escalation clause up to a certain amount, people are just gonna go for that.
Here's the challenge with doing an escalation clause. You're tipping your hand. And what they choose to do with it, you don't know. There are options. They may just not bother. There may be no offers. You just get your lowest price. I'm offering $420. I'm willing to escalate to $440. If you have a competing offer, and that might be good enough for a seller, and they'll give you the take $420. That could happen too. So there's nothing lost by presenting them, but you are tipping a hand of what you're willing to do. And in this market, it's still a hot market. You know that. We were going to Mach 9. We're going to Mach 4. We were still screaming. It's still a seller's market. Will that change over time? You have a flux, whatever. But it's still a really hot market. And when you're competing like this, you just need to, you're sometimes competing with other offers. Escalation clause may or may not be in your best interest. But here's what it looks like. It's under common clauses, and it's called escalation clause. Buyer agrees to offer X number of dollars over any other verifiable offer received by seller up to an amount not to exceed whatever dollars. This shall apply to any offers received by a seller under comparable terms, etc. But it's all right here, and all you do is you copy and paste this over onto an addendum, the sales agreement. It won't fit in other provisions. You just put it on an addendum. But you can use them. It's okay, and you might win with it. You may not. But just be aware. There's a listing. It depends if you're pouring or you're drinking, right? On the listing side, you're drinking. On the buy side, you're pouring. So it depends where you are, how advantageous it may or may not be. Yeah, Colette.
I just wanna know how you got to these clauses.
So
I know
in
that's
their,
another class,
yep, under your Basecamp, under more HQ, docs, links, and info, and there's common clauses right there. And I've added some from time to time, but there's just some clauses in there. Some with some cautions. Be careful when you use them, but that's where the escalation clause is. You just literally cut the price it over and put in the appropriate amounts.
What amount do you usually escalate by? 1,500, 2,000?
Whatever the seller wants, or buyer wants, excuse me. And in the end, if I'm $500 difference, you beat this offer by $500, I now look at all the variables. It's not always just $500. But you'll see 500 to 1,000 a lot. I'll beat any offer by $500. Well, that may not be enough because they're waiving inspection and you're not. They're willing to close here, you're willing to. So it's not just price and just escalation. Escalation is just a way to kind of, I want to avoid spending more than I have to. That's really what that clause is for a buyer.
And there's no escalation clause addendums in ORF, is there, as far as that?
No, I had people ask for it from time to time. It's not there. This is the verbiage off of one I found written by an attorney somewhere. But again, it's a term or a condition that can be countered on or accepted. And again, the value of it depends which hat you're wearing, right? I'm not telling you not to use them. Go ahead if you feel like they're valuable and your client wants to as an option, but just be aware that you're also tipping your hand. They're going to know how high we're willing to go. Okay, other questions? Multiple offers. We kind of went a little Okay? I want to touch on this one really quick, money. So the truth is if there's an error in the MLS as represented by the seller, like missing an AC or lot lines or whatever, if that's an error represented by the seller, you put in the listing, who's responsible for that error? Technically the seller. But what does a seller have to do about the missing AC unit?
Nothing.
It's just a negotiation ahead of time, right? Buyer has an opportunity. Now I know, what do I do about it? And now what do we do about it? Do we have the seller agree to put one in? The seller won't do it. Well, you said it's in listing. Do they have to do it because it's in listing? No. It's just a negotiation thing at that point. Does the agent have to put an AC in it because they keyed the wrong thing based upon seller representation? No. Another twist to this. What if you know there's an AC unit and you say no intentionally? Or vice versa. You know there's no AC unit and you say yes to puff up your listing. Who's now responsible for that? The agent's probably going to be on the hook for that. Okay? We have an agent who we just, a year and a half later, the original listing said deeded access to the Willamette River. Okay? A year and a half later, we get an email from the agent, buyer's agent says, hey, we can't find this recorded deeded access to the Willamette River. Say, well, okay, contact the seller. You know, it's a year and a half later. Well, they're thinking about talking to an attorney. I don't know. What do you want to? So now, and then I know who the agent is on the other side and how little business he does. And so I'm like, okay. So now we have some decisions to make, right? Is there any money that's going to fix that deeded access? There isn't. There's not going to. But the agent spent a couple $100 with an attorney to interpret the title, found the deeded access, and now we're able to send that off. So we found it. So there's a fine line. I guess where I'm going with this, there's a fine line with what you should own and what you shouldn't own. If I can avoid a huge time-consuming effort for a few $100, I'm going to think about that. It's just a business decision at that point. But if any of you are thinking of donating $3,000 because someone released a deposit because you feel bad for them, that's a bad decision. If it was because of your error they released it, you might want to think about that. But just because you feel bad for somebody, those are poor reasons that's a poor motivation to always give up your money, I guess. And I think that goes back to what we were saying. Sometimes we, as realtors, create our own problem. And if everybody here, oh my gosh, I hurt their feelings, I'm going to donate $500 to their whatever closing costs. If everybody's doing that, what does that do to the industry as a whole? Kind of cheapens it, doesn't it? That, okay, you made an error, you don't want to put my money. And actually, in other states, they do this. In other states, not in Oregon, you're allowed to share your commission. So we will often get a call from a client from California or Washington moving in. How much of your commission are you going to give me? Well, none. Why? Well, in California, Washington, and 42 states, you can do that. So there's this expectation out there that buyers and sellers have the handout. Where's my part of your money? You're glad you're in Oregon? Somehow, right? But they do that all the time. And commission sharing and commission inducements are totally legal in other states, but not Oregon. So if you were to take part of your commission and give it back to them or reduce your commission because you felt bad for them releasing the deposit on a different transaction or something like that, you start writing a line of commission sharing. You have to be very, very careful of that. So I just want to touch on it because we have some people still asking questions like there's this missing, there's that missing, they released a deposit, or the sale failed, they lost their inspection money, I want to pay for that. Why? Why do you want to pay for decisions they made? You have to be very, very careful with that and not just go to that immediately. Buyers and sellers are grown-ups, right? They have the right to make decisions, and it's their money they're spending. Doesn't mean you have to automatically assume responsibility for that. I don't know if I'm making sense, or I don't want to be over-rotating on this, but you just want to be careful of that. That you don't just haphazardly just give up your money needlessly. But there's an expectation out there that realtors are willing to do that because the bar's been set there in many places. Does that make sense? Going back to paperwork and other things, we want to make sure the bar is where it should be. Other comments or questions? I know we got a class here in less than a half hour. How many people are staying for the credit class? Raise your hand high. There's room for all of you if you want to stay. And it's really probably going to be a good class, be good to know about credit scores and how to, I mean, you want to give a 30-second commercial on what you're going to talk about?
I think, I'm not talking today, Lorraine is, but the things that it's helped, it's good that credit is on people's radar now with all the credit card companies offering credit scores and things like that, but it's bad because people think they know stuff that's wrong, right? So I always say it's not what I don't know that gets me in trouble, it's what I know that I'm wrong about, right? So there's a lot of that. So the more I think you can know about credit and how it works and why it's important to a mortgage transaction will help you as you're dealing with your clients.
And it's a CE hour.
And it's a CEO.
It starts at 11:30 because we want to put a gap. And there's other realtors going to be here, not just us. So Eric, do you have anything to go over, like Buffini or anything else you want to touch on?
I think we'll have that announcement out today.
Okay.
But I think everybody heard about that as far as starting in June, we'll have the 12-week class. So.
$395 if you want to be in that. Yeah, Patricia.
Well, I just came back with one question back on multiple offer situations. And if there was an escalation clause in it, it was being accepted subject to, there's that language about verifiable offers. So it would be incumbent upon that other agent to provide those. Is there any history that you know of, or is there any law that talks about when they have to do that, how quickly? I mean, they might be holding back and not giving you the information. So what's the deal with that?
Well, so what this means is if I'm going to say, okay, we're going to accept your offer that has this escalation clause, and we received an offer at 410, we'll take your 410 plus 500 to prove that it needs to be that here's an offer for 410. White off or block off the correct information. All you're doing is writing another offer that was rejected. That this is the offer you're beating.
But I mean, it's obvious that they're supposed to do that right away and not play games. So.
Yeah, you have to do it with the escalation if you're going to do that. But a lot of times, again, you just go back and say, not accepting the escalation, we'll just take your price at $10,000. Yeah. Other questions? Anything else? What's that?
If you want to play with kittens, I brought them there to
Play with kittens, okay. Oh, sure. Now everybody goes, oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.